Most people believe emotions are what make them human. They see emotion as a sign of life, proof that they can love, care, and feel. But Machiavelli saw emotions differently. He saw them as a trap, a weapon that destroys rulers, weakens warriors, and blinds men who might otherwise have ruled the world. Every great fall begins with emotion. A king who loves too deeply becomes desperate. A leader who angers too quickly loses allies. A friend who trusts too easily becomes a pawn. Emotion is the invisible chain that ties powerful men to their downfall. And the most dangerous part? They never see it coming. Machiavelli watched leaders rise and crumble during the Renaissance. He observed kings whose mercy destroyed their authority, and generals whose rage ruined their armies. He realized that emotion is not a gift. It is a test, and only those who can master it survive long enough to win. He wrote in The Prince, "He who is quick to love will be quick to hate. Both are signs of weakness." When you act out of emotion, whether love, fear, or anger, you surrender control. You no longer decide what happens next. Your feelings do. And once your enemies realize what triggers you, they own you. Imagine this. A rival insults you in public. Your pride burns. You react instantly. Maybe you lash out. Maybe you try to prove him wrong. Either way, he's already won, because you played by his emotion, not yours. Now imagine another man, silent, calm, unreadable. He doesn't react. He looks you in the eyes, smiles faintly, and walks away. That man terrifies everyone, because no one can control him. That's the first lesson of Machiavellian psychology. The one who cannot be provoked cannot be defeated. Emotional people think they're real, that they're honest for expressing what they feel. But honesty doesn't win wars. Strategy does. The cold man isn't heartless. He's precise. He knows that feelings can be acknowledged privately, but never displayed publicly. To understand this trap, look at human nature itself. The average person is desperate for reaction. When they make you angry, they feel powerful. When they make you sad, they feel important. That's why Machiavelli advised rulers to wear their emotions like armor, unseen, silent, but always under control. He observed that people love drama. They crave emotional chaos because it distracts them from their own weakness. So when they find someone unreactive, someone who doesn't rise to anger or bend to sympathy, they become confused, sometimes even afraid. It's human psychology. We don't fear the one who shouts the loudest. We fear the one who stays calm when others scream. Because once people see what drives you, they'll use it against you. If they see you crave love, they'll withhold it. If they see you want respect, they'll mock you. If they see you need loyalty, they'll betray you, just to remind you who's really in control. That's why Machiavellian strength begins with emotional invisibility. You must learn to hide what you want, disguise what you feel, and observe what others reveal. Ask yourself, when was the last time someone saw you angry? When was the last time someone saw you desperate? Did they respect you more or less? Every time you expose emotion, you give away information. And in a world built on manipulation, information is power. Machiavelli's world wasn't so different from ours. His Italy was full of spies, betrayal, and deceit, much like today's social landscape. The man who could stay emotionally neutral became untouchable. He was feared, trusted, and respected, often all at once. Because when others were drowning in their own feelings, he was still thinking clearly. To Machiavelli, emotional control wasn't just a virtue, it was survival. He didn't tell people to feel nothing. He told them to feel privately, but act strategically. So what does this mean for you? It means when you feel anger rising, pause. Don't fight the emotion. Don't suppress it. Study it. Observe it as if it belonged to someone else. Ask, what triggered this? Who benefits from my reaction? Because every emotional reaction has a beneficiary, and it's rarely you. That's the essence of cold power. The ability to look calm while others lose themselves. It's not about being robotic or heartless. It's about controlling when, how, and if you express emotion at all. The emotional trap isn't that you feel, it's that you respond without thinking. The moment you break that reflex, you begin to see emotion as a weapon, something to be sharpened and used strategically, not randomly thrown away in the heat of reaction. Machiavelli believed that every ruler's greatest enemy was not his rivals, but his own emotions. Anger leads to mistakes. Love leads to blindness. Fear leads to obedience. But calmness, coldness, leads to dominance. The cold man doesn't destroy emotion. He transforms it into energy. His anger becomes focus. His sadness becomes patience. His fear becomes awareness. And that's why he wins. Most people will never learn this art. They'll spend their lives emotionally enslaved, reacting to insults, begging for attention, defending their pride. But a few will rise above. A few will understand that emotional control is not suppression, it's sovereignty. When you can watch chaos and remain calm, you're no longer part of the game. You're the game master. That's the power Machiavelli wanted rulers to understand. And it begins with breaking free from the emotional trap. Once you escape the emotional trap, a new challenge emerges. The art of becoming cold without appearing inhuman. Machiavelli called it the genius of the cold mind. The ability to remain calm, calculating, and aware, even when surrounded by chaos, betrayal, and desire. To the untrained eye, coldness appears like heartlessness. People think those who do not react are weak or indifferent. But the truth is the opposite. The cold genius is powerful beyond measure. He observes, he calculates, and he acts only when the timing is perfect. Every motion, every word, every silence is intentional. The cold genius is not simply emotionless. He feels deeply but selectively. He understands the currents of human emotion, and yet he is never carried by them. He knows which feelings to show and which to hide. This is the key distinction between the weak and the truly strong. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must sometimes appear merciful, faithful, humane, religious, upright. But these appearances are tools, not truths. The genius understands that perception shapes reality. If the world believes you are calm, unshakable, and rational, they bend to your will without a single blow. Imagine a battlefield. Chaos everywhere. Men screaming. Horses panicked. Leaders shouting orders. The cold genius walks through it with the patience of a monk and the awareness of a predator. Others react to the storm. He commands it. And this is how power manifests in subtle ways. Power is not always about domination through force. Often, it is domination through presence, awareness, and the careful management of perception. People do not know how to handle someone who cannot be read. They seek their weaknesses and find none. This is why Machiavelli emphasizes control over self before control over others. The man who cannot master his own mind will never master anyone else's. A genius of coldness studies human nature relentlessly. He notices what people desire, fear, and crave. He watches for their inconsistencies, their subtle betrayals, the tiny cracks in their demeanor. Then he acts, not out of passion, not out of revenge, but out of strategy. The key to cold genius lies in timing. Too early, and your move is obvious. Too late, an opportunity slips away. The cold genius understands that action is a tool, and inaction is also a tool. He may sit silently while others fight. He may smile while others panic. He may pretend to be weak while quietly building power. Many call this manipulation. Machiavelli calls it wisdom. Manipulation without purpose is petty. Strategy without emotion is mechanical. Cold genius is both human and inhuman. Emotional yet untouchable. A social environment. The cold genius is almost impossible to provoke. Attempts to embarrass, belittle, or control him fail. This is because people target emotional responses, and he offers none. He communicates only through controlled gestures, calculated words, and precise actions. The genius is not invisible. He is unpredictable, and unpredictability is terrifying. People are comfortable with those they can predict. They are confident that reactions will be as expected. But the cold genius? His reactions are reserved for strategic moments. He gives the illusion of unpredictability, making others cautious, hesitant, and often submissive. Machiavelli wrote that a prince should know how to vary his behavior according to necessity. The cold genius lives by this principle. He is flexible, fluid, and adaptable, yet never reactive. A practical example. Consider a colleague trying to provoke you at work. Most would retaliate with words, anger, or passive aggression. The cold genius observes. He notices the timing, the context, the body language. He calculates the best possible response, which may be silence, a subtle countermove, or a strategic compliment. This control elevates him. People sense his mastery. They respect him. They fear the consequences of misjudging him. The genius of coldness also thrives in high-stakes environments. Politics, business, warfare, any domain where emotion can be exploited. The cold genius does not play by the rules of the emotional masses. He creates his own rules. And this is why Machiavelli often writes about fear versus love. Fear is immediate. Love is unreliable. The cold genius inspires respect through presence and control, not through appeasement or flattery. He is not liked by all, but he is feared and respected by those who matter. A social environment. The cold genius is almost impossible to provoke. Attempts to embarrass, belittle, or control him fail. This is because people target emotional responses, and he offers none. He communicates only through controlled gestures, calculated words, and precise actions. The genius is not invisible. He is unpredictable, and unpredictability is terrifying. People are comfortable with those they can predict. They are confident that reactions will be as expected. But the cold genius? His reactions are reserved for strategic moments. He gives the illusion of unpredictability, making others cautious, hesitant, and often submissive. Machiavelli wrote that a prince should know how to vary his behavior according to necessity. The cold genius lives by this principle. He is flexible, fluid, and adaptable, yet never reactive. A practical example. Consider a colleague trying to provoke you at work. Most would retaliate with words, anger, or passive aggression. The cold genius observes. He notices the timing, the context, the body language. He calculates the best possible response, which may be silence, a subtle countermove, or a strategic compliment. This control elevates him. People sense his mastery. They respect him. They fear the consequences of misjudging him. The genius of coldness also thrives in high-stakes environments. Politics, business, warfare, any domain where emotion can be exploited. The cold genius does not play by the rules of the emotional masses. He creates his own rules. And this is why Machiavelli often writes about fear versus love. Fear is immediate. Love is unreliable. The cold genius inspires respect through presence and control, not through appeasement or flattery. He is not liked by all, but he is feared and respected by those who matter. Another dimension. The cold genius is self-sufficient. He does not rely on validation, compliments, or recognition. He acts because it serves his purpose, not because he desires praise. This independence amplifies power. The moment you rely on others' approval, you surrender control. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago, and it remains true today. The man who can stand alone, silent, and focused is unstoppable. Being cold does not mean lacking empathy. The cold genius can understand motives, manipulate outcomes, and even inspire loyalty, all while maintaining emotional distance. This emotional distance is not cruelty. It is clarity. It allows him to see situations as they are, not as he wishes them to be. In practical terms, cultivating cold genius requires 1. Observation over reaction. 2. Patience over impulsivity. 3. Silence over unnecessary speech. 4. Awareness over assumption. 5. Strategic use of emotion, not indulgence in it. Machiavelli also reminds us that cold genius is a lifelong practice. You cannot master it overnight. Every interaction, every conflict, every failure is a lesson. Learn to watch people, understand patterns, and resist the pull of immediate emotion. The ultimate lesson: the cold mind conquers before the body acts. Wars, negotiations, leadership, All are won first in the mind, not on the battlefield or boardroom. Finally, remember this. The cold genius is not lonely. He is deliberate. He forms alliances, nurtures relationships, and builds networks, but always from a position of clarity, not need. He is the calm in the storm, the strategist behind every victory, an invisible force shaping the outcomes of those who are too emotional to see clearly. To become the cold genius, you must embrace solitude, reflection, and awareness. You must accept that most people will never understand your silence. And that is exactly as it should be. Power isn't always gained by strength. Sometimes it's gained by understanding the weakness of others and protecting yourself from being controlled by it. Machiavelli called this awareness the armor of manipulation, the invisible shield that separates the ruler from the ruled. You can't always control what people do to you, but you can always control how you interpret what they do. And in that interpretation lies power. Let's begin with a brutal truth. Every human being wants something from you. They might want attention, validation, obedience, love, or simply your reaction. Every conversation, every compliment, every insult is a move on a chessboard. But most people don't realize it because they're playing checkers while believing they're in control. Machiavelli understood this game centuries ago. He knew that humans are not logical. They are emotional creatures trying to appear rational. They manipulate unconsciously and sometimes deliberately to gain psychological advantage. He didn't hate them for it. He simply chose to play the game better. He wrote, "Men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear." A manipulator knows this deeply. They study what drives you, what makes you excited, what makes you anxious, what makes you break. And once they know it, they can control you without ever lifting a finger. They can make you beg for approval, doubt your own worth, and defend their betrayal as if it's your fault. They don't need to use violence. They only need to use your emotions. That's why Machiavelli's wisdom wasn't about cruelty. It was about awareness. He understood that in a world full of hidden motives, your first responsibility is not to trust blindly. It is to observe, to study the emotional currency of every person who approaches you. Does this person seek admiration or power? Do they crave your respect, your loyalty, or your submission? Once you know that, you'll see their manipulation before it begins. The manipulator's shield is built from 3 layers: emotional detachment, perception control, and selective empathy. Let's break them down. Brain 1. Emotional detachment. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop depending. Machiavelli observed that attachment makes rulers predictable. When you need love, enemies will starve you of it. When you crave loyalty, they will betray you for control. Detachment cuts those strings. The manipulator feeds on your reactions. The more emotional you are, the easier you are to read. When you detach, you become unreadable. And unreadable people are dangerous. A Machiavellian doesn't over-explain. He doesn't justify himself. He watches others talk too much, reveal too much, and betray themselves through emotion. The detached man listens quietly, not because he's weak, but because silence is information. Detachment also allows you to stay grounded when you're being provoked. Every time you resist the urge to react, you strengthen the shield. People begin to sense that their words can't move you, and that frustrates them. They either respect you or expose themselves in the process of trying to break you. 2. Perception control. Machiavelli famously wrote that a prince must learn to be both the fox and the lion. The fox is cunning, it sees traps. The lion is feared, it intimidates enemies. Perception control is about mastering both. It's not about faking confidence. It's about projecting control. Your posture, tone, and timing communicate more than your words ever can. When people can't predict your reactions, they stop manipulating you and start respecting you. Control the perception others have of you. Never appear desperate. Never appear too eager to please. Even in generosity, maintain a sense of authority, as if your kindness is a deliberate act, not a weakness. A manipulator thrives on imbalance. If they sense emotional chaos in you, they gain confidence. But if you remain calm and controlled, smiling when they expect anger, silent when they expect defense, they lose their weapon. Their manipulation hits an invisible wall. That wall is perception control. Machiavelli knew that image was power. A calm, unreadable image commands respect even before a word is spoken. In the Renaissance courts, the most feared men were not the loud ones, but the silent, calculating advisors who spoke rarely but struck precisely. Be that kind of person. Red Heart 3. Selective empathy. Empathy is dangerous when uncontrolled. It opens your mind, and sometimes your weakness, to everyone. Selective empathy, however, is strength. It's the ability to understand emotions without becoming trapped in them. The manipulator's shield doesn't mean rejecting emotion. It means using it strategically. Understand people deeply, their hopes, fears, and desires, but remain emotionally detached from their struggles. That's how you predict actions before they happen. Machiavelli often said that leaders must learn how not to be good. What he meant was this: the ruler must understand both virtue and vice, and use each when necessary. Selective empathy gives you that flexibility. Sometimes, you must appear kind to disarm suspicion. Other times, you must appear indifferent to maintain respect. The art lies in deciding, not feeling. Now, let's see how the manipulator's shield works in action. Imagine someone insults you in front of others, hoping you'll react and lose control. Instead of responding, you smile faintly, make eye contact, and change the subject. That single act destroys their entire strategy. Because your calmness reflects strength, and their provocation now looks like desperation. The crowd no longer sees you as weak. They see the other as foolish. That's how Machiavellian psychology wins. Not through confrontation, but through redirection. In another scenario, someone tries to emotionally guilt you. They remind you of what they did for you, expecting obedience. Instead of explaining or apologizing, you simply say, "I appreciate what you did," and then you change the topic. That sentence acknowledges but doesn't yield. You neither fight nor surrender. You maintain the upper hand. This is the manipulator's shield, calm, polite, untouchable. You're not avoiding conflict. You're transcending it. You're not fighting people. You're making them fight themselves in the mirror of their own emotion. Machiavelli's lesson is eternal. In the game of power, emotion is the weapon of the weak. Awareness is the weapon of the strong. The manipulator uses others' emotions to control them, but the wise man uses understanding of emotion to stay free. And that's the real secret. The shield doesn't protect you from the world. It makes the world transparent to you. Once you can see through people's motives, they can no longer hide their intentions. They become predictable, and predictability is defeat. When you wear the manipulator's shield, you stop being prey. You stop reacting. You start observing. You become the silent player in a world full of noise. And as Machiavelli would whisper, the one who understands human nature controls human destiny. True mastery in life is not about conquering others. It's about conquering yourself. The greatest kings, philosophers, and warriors all discovered one truth. Real power lies in silence, patience, and control over one's emotions. Imagine a man who speaks less, but observes more. People fear him, not because he's cruel, but because they can't read him. His silence becomes his weapon. His calmness is his shield. His discipline is his throne. That man has learned the Machiavellian truth. To control the game, you must first control yourself. 1. The art of strategic silence. In a world where everyone wants to speak, silence becomes a form of dominance. Machiavelli once wrote that a wise ruler never reveals the full extent of his thoughts. When you remain silent, you create an aura of mystery. People start to imagine what you're thinking, and their imagination often gives you more power than your words ever could. Think of powerful figures in history. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, ruled with calm detachment. Niccolò Machiavelli, though exiled and powerless, used his pen to influence kings for centuries. Miyamoto Musashi, Japan's legendary swordsman, spoke little but won every duel through his mind's control, not his sword. The more you talk, the more you reveal. The more you reveal, the weaker you become. But when you choose your words like a blade, sharp, rare, and deliberate, people listen. 2. Emotional control, the root of power. Most people are slaves, not to rulers or governments, but to their emotions. They react instantly to anger, jealousy, or fear. Machiavelli taught that a ruler who cannot control emotion will be ruled by it. The wise man doesn't react. He responds. Someone insults him, he smiles. Someone betrays him. He learns. Someone tries to manipulate him. He plays along until the perfect moment to strike. This emotional control makes him appear almost inhuman, untouchable. Because when everyone else burns in chaos, he stands like a mountain, unshaken. 3. The power of observation. Most people look, but they don't see. They hear, but they don't listen. They move, but they don't plan. A Machiavellian mind studies people like a chessboard. Every gesture, tone, and hesitation reveals something. He doesn't rush to act. He gathers information until the world moves in his favor. Remember, knowledge is the foundation of control. When you observe long enough, people expose their weaknesses. And once you know their weaknesses, the game belongs to you. Be patient. Let others show their cards while you hold your silence. 4. The illusion of morality. Machiavelli understood something uncomfortable. Good and evil are tools, not truths. The moral man is often destroyed by his purity. The strategic man survives by balance. This doesn't mean being cruel. It means being realistic. Sometimes you must act harshly to preserve peace. Sometimes you must lie to protect truth. Sometimes you must walk in darkness to keep the light alive. To master this balance is to transcend the limits of ordinary men. You become something higher, not good, not evil, but effective. 5. Building an unshakable mind. The Machiavellian man doesn't break. When life turns against him, he adapts. When plans collapse, he rebuilds quietly. When enemies plot, he listens and smiles. He knows that pain is not a punishment. It's a teacher. He doesn't seek comfort. He seeks clarity. Every failure sharpens his strategy. Every loss deepens his wisdom. To become this man, you must do 3 things daily. 1. Discipline your mind. Control what you think about. 2. Master your tongue. Speak only with purpose. 3. Guard your emotions. Never let others see you unstable. The world tests you constantly, not to destroy you, but to see if you're worthy of power. 6. The final rule, become the shadow. The most powerful man is not the one in the spotlight. It's the one behind it. He doesn't need fame. He needs control. He influences quietly, moves unseen, and lets others take the credit. He knows that true influence works like gravity, unseen but irresistible. You don't have to roar like a lion when you can command like a whisper. Machiavelli's final lesson is this. It's better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But the wise man learns to be respected. Respect is born from strength and restraint. You don't demand it. You earn it through consistency, composure, and quiet dominance. 7. The path to mastery. You're not weak. You are simply undisciplined. The moment you learn to delay reaction, to watch rather than rush, to endure instead of escape, you transform. You no longer live emotionally. You live strategically. You no longer chase validation. You chase mastery. And when you reach that point, the world bends to your calmness. Because men who master themselves master everything. 8. The closing words. As the ancient thinkers taught, he who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. Be silent, not passive. Be calm, not weak. Be kind, but never naive. Learn when to disappear, when to observe, and when to strike. That's how empires were built. That's how legacies were written. And that's how you rise, not by shouting louder, but by thinking deeper.